Hey everybody, this is Perch. This is one of those stories that I remember coming across it because I follow Chris Claremont's Instagram, and I remember thinking, "Oh, okay," and then it didn't register. Or I don't know. It didn't become a video. I didn't comment. I know during one of the live streams I rolled this out, and nobody else had heard about it. And I remember thinking, ah, I should comment on this, and then promptly forgot it again. But anyway, Chris Claremont is an interesting case. Obviously, a writer that a lot of people know his name, responsible for what many have rated as the strongest X-Men stories in its history. That's not a shot at newer people. Just that's, you look at every list, and the Chris Claremont stuff tends to finish on top. He obviously wrote that title for a very long time. He was a huge part of Marvel for forever. And really due to editorial interference, and we're talking Bob Harris here, Chris Claremont got kind of, I don't know, just they they moved on without him to some extent, and then immediately regretted it when Jim Lee and others vanished off to Image. One of the interesting stories, by the way, is that there was this talk back in the day that people have speculated that Jim Lee actually pushed off Chris Claremont from the book. But if you look at a lot of kind of the history, you read the comments at the time, Jim Lee wasn't thrilled about that move. That wasn't what he was looking for. This seemed to be more something that kind of editorial had in their head as a way to kind of placate the artists that were up and coming, but in many cases were giving them things they weren't even asking for. But regardless, Chris Claremont's X-Men run ended, and then he would come back and he would do another shorter run, and he would do a lot of kind of X-Men books which felt slightly outside of continuity. They weren't, but they were just outside of the mainstream. And then he's done some independent work. Chris Claremont's done a lot. But what had happened was that Marvel, saying it just quickly and loosely, Marvel was paying Chris Claremont to not work, which isn't exactly accurate. It was more like they had him on retainer and they didn't want him to go over to DC. It's an interesting bit of just trying to lock up the writer. So that's been going on for quite some time. And but we've been waiting for Claremont to do something more. And so this gets us back to Instagram. What does it have to do with Instagram? Well, Chris Claremont, as I said, has an account, and every now and then he publishes his desk and things he's working on. So a couple months ago, he actually posted sitting by the shore of the bay, watching the storm roll in, grabbing a tad of reward time after finishing. And here he censors himself to try and keep it clean. And he lists it as GA *** T. Number 3, or 3. Now it's clearly Gambit. It's Gambit 3. So grabbing a tad of reward time after finishing Gambit, and then he gets caught up on deadlines and everything else. And then recently he's posted more pictures where without the stars, it's just labeled Gambit number 4, right at the top of the page. It's just Gambit number 4 outline. And we see him basically, writing his script. He has a plush Lockheed doll, which I'd love to know where he got that. That's pretty cool. But anyway, it's he basically posts several pictures of kind of his notebook and picture and everything else. All this basically saying that Chris Claremont is absolutely writing Gambit. So is this a solo title? Is it an X-Men Legends story for Gambit? Is it, some level of in continuity, out of continuity? Is it the secret history of Gambit? We've probably already got that. But basically, it seems very, very clear at this point. Yes, Chris Claremont's next Marvel project is imminent, and it will be Gambit or Gambit related. Now Claremont... I met Claremont at the convention in Puyallup about a month ago, 2 months ago. I can no longer remember. The summer's been weird. But he was very excited about the new project he was working on. He's very excited about getting some stuff back into the X universe, that he had stories to tell. But he was, and this has come out a few places, so I don't feel like it's rumor or anything. He hasn't particularly appreciated or is not necessarily on board with the current Krakoa X-Men, that storyline and everything that's happening there. Now, Could be okay. So now we're in full on speculation time. What are the facts we know? Well, the facts we know is Claremont's posting pictures from his desk, literally from the source, showing scripts that he's writing for Gambit, and we're on Gambit number 4, which tends to we could speculate a little bit that either this is happening in a solo book, or if it is happening for X-Men Legends, they're going to break the 2-issue story routine and do something more ongoing. So one of those two. Feels at this point a little bit weird if you have Chris Claremont and he's on issue 4 of something. It seems like it would be strange to sandwich him into X-Men Legends. So I think the idea of a solo series or limited series or whatever it happens to be is probably more likely. So that's what we know. So now to what we speculate on. As I mentioned, Chris Claremont hasn't been thrilled with the Hickman era of X-Men. It's hard to say. I mean, his initial comments for Hickman seemed to be positive, especially when Hickman talked about going back and rereading and focusing on a lot of the X-Men lore and really kind of immersing himself in that. Claremont seemed to be supportive, at least in his comments. Claremont, by the way, is a professional. He doesn't go online and say just nasty things to people. He tends to keep it buttoned up. He was a little bit more off the cuff in years past, but in recent times, he gives you his opinion straightforward, but he doesn't get in there and talks shit about people. He tends to be on the up and up. And but as Krakoa is going on, I think he's expressed. I think some people have tried to make more of it than it is, but just that it's not for him. Basically, it's not something he's terribly been excited about. We do know that the X-Men coming up after the end of Inferno, so we're talking the beginning of the year, January, February. We know that they're going weekly. We know that the line is changing and going to be, there's going to be relaunches. There's going to be a huge kind of new X-Men push coming out of the X office, and it's going to be another step of the Hickman X era with a bunch of status quo changes and everything else. So we know that that's coming. A lot more comics, new comics, faster shipping comics, everything else all coming. We don't know some of the names who are replacing, but we've heard people like Steve Orlando is coming into the X office. We've heard a variety of kind of other people who are going to be part of this in some form or fashion going forward. So all those are kind of the pieces. So is Claremont part of that mix? I mean, if we're talking betting odds, again, I'm speculating here. I would say no. I would say this is probably some level of limited series that's being done, not any kind of ongoing thing. And I just that's my take on it. I don't think that we're getting any kind of big Hickman return for Claremont. Feels to be fairly self-contained. I don't think Marvel has turned the page on using him more, even though I desperately wish they would. But that's kind of basically where it sits. In terms of other news, I mean, like I said, we're speculating here. Will he be using Gambit from the past? Will he be using kind of a alternate reality Gambit? Will he be using the current Gambit that's running around in Excalibur with Teenie Howard? Nobody really knows. Now, for what it's worth, I guess I'll also throw out there, I mean, Chris Claremont does have a fondness for Excalibur. He certainly wrote that title for a time and had a really great mark on that. So as we're seeing people shuffle around, we know Hickman is leaving. The rest of the team, by and large, seems to be staying, although Leah Williams' comments recently, which were very negative about the X office and editorial and everything else, indicates she's probably not sticking with it, but who knows? Maybe she is. We know Teenie Howard does have this Substack deal and was working with Hickman on his projects, but we've heard nothing about her leaving the X office. But I think all of this kind of amounts to a decent amount of shuffling that we're in store for in the very early part of the year. I think we'll be surprised by some names coming in and going out. I don't think Jerry Duggan's going anywhere. Don't think Ben Percy's going anywhere. Whatever. There was some friction that was kind of earlier said that existed in some of those camps, but that seems to be better now. I'm not sure. But basically, it definitely seems like the X office is going to be mixed up a bit. And we have a incoming, imminent. I mean, at this point, the next solicitations we're waiting for is December. And I have a hard time believing they're going to launch a Chris Claremont book, because even if it's a limited series, even if it's off to the side, Chris Claremont's going to bring a lot of attention to his name. So I think we're getting some level of book from him. I would peg in the January, February time, but we'll see when we get there. But anyway, that's the news. People have been asking, what's Claremont up to? Gambit is what he's up to. And rather than trust me or anyone else, just go to his Instagram site, subscribe or check it out. And he's literally just posting the pages. So it's the easiest possible way to kind of see what he's up to. It's right there on his table. And how often do you get something like that? But what do you say? Are you excited to see Claremont return to the world of the X-Men? Is Gambit where you'd have him? Do you think he'll have Gambit have a symbiotic love affair with his jacket, like some fan sites have suggested? Is that something that you would be interested in? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.